Welcome to this video on the setup and use of the TOPCON HIPER II RTK GPS GNSS system. The first step you should complete when getting ready to use the system is to charge the batteries. Begin by setting up your chargers. The one on the left here is charger for the GTAC data collector. Insert the AC jack into the port located by the yellow arrow on the screen. Once that is inserted correctly, the light on top will turn green. Locate the batteries for the rover and base receivers. You'll notice here pointed in yellow certain indentations and marks in the batteries. These correspond with marks on the charger unit itself. The battery will set down and slide into place. Make sure it's firmly pushed down before trying to push it sideways into the charging port. Once it is seated correctly, the light will flash green as it is charging. Next, we will set up the base station itself. In order to set up the base station, you will need the following: the tripod attachment, the 6-inch extension, the adapter, the base GNSS receiver, an antenna, and a metric tape measure. Begin by setting up the tripod. Find a level spot and spread out the tripod legs. Once that is done, lift the tripod as high as you can get and still be able to see the level. Step the feet into the ground to make sure that the base is secure. Once that is done, place the attachment that mounts the receiver on top of the tripod. You'll notice that you have to level the tripod. You need to level it mostly with the legs and then fine-tune with the thumb screws on the attachment for the receiver. Next, we will install the battery into the receiver unit. To do so, remove the battery cover, insert the battery in a similar fashion that we did to the charger, by pushing down and sliding into place. You also need to check here that the SD card is inserted into the unit. Replace the cover and move on to the antenna. The antenna is a twist lock fitting and simply pushes on and twists about a half a turn. Once that is done, screw the adapter into the 6-inch extension. Then screw the 6-inch extension into the receiver unit. Place the receiver unit on top of the tripod and secure using the thumb screw on top of the attachment. The last step is to measure from the receiver unit to the ground. There's a notch on the side of the receiver unit that you would place a tape measure and measure to the pin that you set on the ground. Retain this measurement for future use. The next step is setting up the rover unit. To do this, you will need the rover receiver, the GTAC data recorder, the data recorder mount, the rover rod, and a rover antenna. Take the rod and mount the data recorder mount onto the rod by screwing in the thumb screw. Place the data recorder in the mount and secure it. Extend the pole by loosening the lock nut and pulling the shaft out until it locks into place. You may need to twist it slightly. Tighten the lock nut down. Place the battery in the rover unit the same way we did in the base unit. And attach the rover antenna. Screw the rover receiver to the top of the rover rod. We now need to start the base station. Begin by pressing the power button on the lower left. When the unit powers up, you will notice several lights. The first is the battery status. We want to ensure that we have a full battery. The GPS status will flash with the GPS constellations and the number of satellites seen. The memory card status lets us know what memory we have left. The Bluetooth and radio status tell us how we are connected to the rover unit and the data recorder. Begin by selecting Start on the data recorder. After Start, select Top Serve. Begin by tapping New, then enter a job name and tap Next. Then we need to select the configuration that we want to use and tap Next. We want to ensure that the configuration has not been changed by another user. Tap Next to cycle through the screens and ensure the settings are correct. Once that is done, tap the green check mark in the upper right. We now want to connect to the base station unit. Make sure that base is selected on the screen and tap Connect. On the second screen you will see the available units to connect to. Make sure that base is selected and tap Select. Once you have connected to the base unit, we can select Setup and Start Base. This screen is where we assign a point to our base station unit. In the name field, make sure that you use a name that is readily identifiable as a base. You should notice that there are no coordinates here for the base. Select the button marked 2 in order to bring in the new coordinates from the base station. Then you will enter the antenna height that you measured when we set up the base unit, and then check Start. This will start the base recording its position. In order to start collecting points, we need to start the rover unit. You will need to disconnect from the base station, then select Rover and tap Connect again. Make sure that Rover is selected on the second screen and then tap Select. Once we have connected to the rover, we can tap Topo and it will bring up the job screen. There should be an indicator at the top of the screen that indicates you are connected in RTK status. The point number will increase for each new point we take. We need to ensure that the antenna height is correct at 2 meters. We should also have a solution for GPS accuracy. To take a point, hold the rod as plumb and level as possible. You will need to hold still for 30 seconds. Tap the Start button on the screen and the epoch counter will count from up to 30 from 0. Once it has reached 30, tap Save in order to save the point. You'll notice that the point number will advance. Once you have finished collecting your points, you can shut down the system and place it back in the box. In order to use this data collected, we need to perform corrections on it. The first one is the log file. It is located on the SD card inserted in the base station receiver. Navigate to the OPUS website. This website will provide a correction for our base station unit. Choose the log file that we downloaded from the base station unit. Next, select our antenna. In this case, we're using the TOPCON HIPER II. It is marked as TPS Hyper 2_none. The antenna height needs to remain 0 here. Enter your email where OPUS will send the results. If everything is correct, The OPUS website will give you a confirmation that the data is processed properly. You will receive an email from OPUS. You'll notice that the log file is the title header on the email.
For these corrections, we will use the ITRF 2014 system. You will notice a latitude and a longitude and an elevation correction. Take note of these values.
Next, we need to connect the TOPCON unit to our computer in order to locate the job file. In this case, it is King. Start the TOPCON Tools software.
When the software opens, click the New Job button.
Begin by entering a job name. You may also want to fill out the rest of this information. There are no points associated with this job yet.
We want to import the points from the TOPCON. Go to Jobs, select Import, and find the .tsj file, in this case, king.tsj. We need to apply the OPUS correction to these points. Right-click on your base station point, in this case King 1, and go to Properties. In the General tab, set the control to Both. Now go to the Coordinates tab. We can fix the base point location by applying the coordinates from the OPUS correction we noted earlier. This will give us a very accurate base station location. Apply the changes and click OK. After applying the corrections, notice the symbol change and its meaning in the legend, horizontal and vertical control. To apply these changes to all points, find the Adjust Network button at the top right. Click the Continue button to display the number of results of that adjustment. Notice again the symbol change and its meaning in the legend. These points are ready to export, so we can bring them into another GIS software. Go to Job and select Export. In the Format Name field, make sure to select the lat, long, height, code-coordinates CSV file type. Name your file and click Save to finalize the export process.